I never knew a kind stranger would change our lives forever. The moment she found me washing clothes in the rain, drenched and desperate, everything shifted. I still feel the cold water seeping through my skin, mixing with tears streaming down my face. My heart raced, pounding like a drum in my chest. I was broken. My hands trembled as I scrubbed the fabric, the soap slipping through my fingers. I could smell the damp earth and hear the distant rumble of thunder. It was one of those days when everything felt heavy, like the clouds were sitting on my shoulders. I had lost my job, and now the bills piled up higher than I could reach. Each garment I washed carried the weight of a dream slipping away. I glanced at the empty street, lonely and quiet. My world felt small, suffocating. Then out of nowhere she appeared. A woman with wild, bright hair and eyes that sparkled like diamonds. She walked towards me, her steps light, almost dancing. I froze, water dripping from my chin as I stared at her. "Do you need help?" she asked, her voice like honey. I wanted to scream, to cry, to run. But instead, I nodded. I had no idea who she was, but a warmth spread in my chest, something I'd longed for. Her presence was magnetic, pulling me in closer. She wore a colorful dress that moved with her, fluttering like a flag of hope. "Let's figure this out together," she said, kneeling beside me. Her hands reached out, and I thought for a moment my heart might stop. There was something different about her, magical, maybe. I could see it in the way she looked at me, as if she could peel back my fears and see the girl I used to be. I told her about the bills, the late nights filled with worry, the dreams of a better life that seemed to slip further away. Her gaze didn't falter, I felt seen. Even as the rain poured down, I could almost hear the sound of opportunity whispering in the storm. But then, just as she was about to speak, I noticed something. A small, silver locket hanging from her neck, glinting in the dreary light. It felt like a key to a door I wasn't meant to open. I felt the atmosphere shift, the air thick with uncertainty. "Sometimes," she started, her voice suddenly distant, "the answers are not what we expect." Her eyes darkened, a shadow passing over her. Then she hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as if someone were watching us. My heart jumped. Who could it be? Can I trust her? I thought, my pulse quickening. What if this was a trap? What if she was too good to be true? Yet, the way she looked at me ignited a flicker of hope, a promise of something greater than the struggle I faced. I didn't know it then, but that day would mark the beginning of a whirlwind I could never have imagined. Friendships, betrayals, secrets hidden in the rain, and a mystery that seemed to cling to her like the wet fabric of my clothes. I held my breath, waiting for her to finish. Would she reveal the truth about the locket? Or would this moment slip away like all the others? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The rain continued to pound down, each drop heavy with unspoken words and hidden fears. I felt the weight of her gaze, searching my face for something. Was it understanding? Was it fear? I could hardly breathe as I awaited her answer, my messy life spilling over, making the ground beneath us muddy with the reality I had tried to keep hidden. "Sometimes," she said, her voice softer now, "the things that seem perfect can hide darker truths." She clasped the locket tightly, as if drawing strength from it. "And sometimes, people, they come into our lives to teach us something essential, whether we like it or not." I didn't understand what she meant, but something in her expression made my heart ache with yearning. A desire to push through the uncertainty and grasp onto the hope she offered. "What do you mean?" I whispered, almost afraid of the answer. Before she could respond, a sharp clap of thunder split the air, rattling the daydream I was beginning to weave. I flinched, looking up nervously. It wasn't simply the storm, something felt undeniably off. As if she sensed my fear, the woman quickly touched my arm, her fingers warm against my damp skin. "We can't stay here," she said urgently, glancing again over her shoulder. Please, trust me. We need to go. A swell of panic washed over me. Trust? How could I trust someone I just met, someone who felt like a flicker of light in a cavern of darkness? Yet the desperation gnawed at my insides, urging me to follow. So I nodded, and we ran. We dashed down deserted streets, the rain slapping against our backs, soaking us even more. In that moment, my world became smaller. It was just the two of us against the storm and whatever shadows lurked behind. I didn't question where we were going, though the wild pounding of my heart echoed my uncertainties. Fragments of thoughts surged in my mind. Was this a way out of my troubles or just another trap? In the chaotic rush, I caught glimpses of her, hair dancing wildly, feet barely touching the ground. For a fleeting moment, I felt liberated, like a child playing in the rain rather than a woman confronting her mounting debts and impending despair. At last, we ducked into a small, tucked-away cafe, its warm light flickering in the murky weather. It smelled of coffee and baked goods, a rich scent that curled into my lungs and drew me in like a lifeline. We settled into a booth, and the woman shook off the rain like a wild animal shedding the last remnants of winter. I tried to do the same, my breath steadying as I took in the cozy atmosphere. Tell me your name, I said, my voice trembling slightly as I wiped droplets from my cheeks. Cleo, she replied, that smile returning radiant, strangely reassuring. And yours, Ava. My heart skipped as I said it. It felt both familiar and foreign, like I hadn't said it in ages. Cleo leaned in closer, and for the first time, I noticed the intensity in her eyes. Ava, I know you're afraid. I can feel it. She hesitated, glancing out the window where the rain continued to fall. But sometimes fear can propel us forward if we let it. Just then, a waitress approached, setting 2 steaming mugs of cocoa on the table. I wrapped my hands around the cup, welcoming the warmth. As I took a sip, Cleo's eyes turned serious. I have something to tell you, she said softly, her hand resting over mine, creating a bridge from the chaos outside to an unexpected moment of connection. There's a reason I came to you that day in the rain. My heart raced again, gripped by both curiosity and dread. What do you mean? Before she could answer, the cafe door swung open. A gust of wind swept inside, flinging the rain like daggers. The patrons looked up, startled, and my heart sank when I saw a familiar figure step inside. Oh no, I gasped, pulling back instinctively as I recognized the face from my past. It was Kyle, my former boss, the one who had fired me, and the very turbulence in my life that led me to this enchanted moment with Cleo. His eyes scanned the room, landing right on me, and I felt as though the ground might swallow me whole. The warmth of the cocoa turned ice cold in my grip. Guilt and fear spiraled in my chest as I tried to hide, to slip back into the shadows of my turmoil. But there was nowhere to go now. The storm outside paled to the tempest that threatened to engulf me within. Cleo squeezed my hand tighter, igniting a flicker of hope amidst my dread. Stay with me, she whispered. You're not alone anymore. But in the depths of Kyle's gaze, I could see the past clawing its way back into my life, and my heart raced with the realization I would have to confront this shadow soon. The wooden walls of the cafe felt like they were closing in as the next chapter of my life hung in the balance, threatening to unravel everything I had just begun to mend. The cafe felt like a sanctuary, its warm glow wrapping around me like a fragile tapestry, but standing before Kyle, that safety threatened to unravel. He stepped deeper into the dim light, shaking off droplets that matched the turbulence within me. My pulse quickened as he approached, each step igniting the embers of my discontent, fear, resentment, and the persistent ache of unfulfilled dreams. Cleo, I whispered, barely audible over the cacophony of the rain, panic clawing at the corners of my composure. She turned to face me, her features resolute. Ava, remember what I said. You are not alone. But that was easy for her to say. The whirlwind of emotions swirling around in my chest made it hard to hold on to her words. Kyle's voice cut through the din, rich and laced with authority. Ava, there you are. His tone, though cordial, carried an edge that made my skin crawl. Thought I'd find you here. We need to talk about your responsibilities. At those words, my fight or flight instinct flared. I felt trapped between past obligations and emerging hope, between who I was and who I longed to be. Cleo leaned closer, her presence like an anchor against the rising tide of my anxiety. I can handle it, I snapped, trying to project strength I didn't feel, but inside, I was teetering on the precipice of despair and resolve. Clenching the cocoa mug harder, I held my breath, waiting. Kyle raised an eyebrow, a flicker of that old menace alive in his eyes. Let's step outside. It'll be easier to discuss this without the audience. The suggestion struck me like lightning, and I immediately recoiled. No. I won't go anywhere with you. The tremor in my voice betrayed the fear I was battling. I glanced desperately at Cleo, who had not let go of my hand. Stay, she urged, her grip firm and grounding, and just like that, a sliver of courage broke through my overwhelming dread. You have a right to stand your ground, Ava. Don't let him intimidate you. Kyle laughed, a sharp, cold sound devoid of warmth. You think I'm here to intimidate you? I'm here to clean up the mess you've left behind. You know the consequences, right? I could hear the dark undertones in his voice, the nagging threats lingering beneath his polished words, and I clenched my fist tighter around the mug. You don't have power over me anymore. I shot back, feeling the rush of adrenaline coat my veins, emboldening me. Cleo's gaze met mine with an intensity that both reassured and emboldened me further. Suddenly, she stood, tall and fierce, shielding me from the storm that threatened to breach the cafe walls. She's not going anywhere with you, Kyle. You need to leave. A tense silence filled the room, our collective breathing echoing against the painted walls. Kyle's smile faded, replaced by something darker. You think you can protect her? You don't know the whole story, and trust me, it's far more complicated than you realize. Cleo didn't back down. Maybe it is complicated, but that doesn't give you rights to dictate how Ava lives her life. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Kyle's face at Cleo's resolve, and for a moment, I saw the cracks in his confidently constructed facade. But it was short-lived. Fine, he said finally, his voice low and threatening. But this isn't over, Ava. You'll regret this. With a final glimmer of disdain in his eyes, he turned and pushed through the door, leaving a stillness that felt almost tangible in his absence. When the door swung closed, I exhaled, a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. New warmth enveloped me, but it was fleeting. Ava? Cleo reached for my other hand, bringing my attention back to her. Are you all right? I don't know, I admitted, my voice shaky, the confrontation having stripped me bare. The moments spent with Cleo felt like an oasis in the storm, yet the shadows of reality loomed, whispering reminders of my debts and pressures. Cleo squeezed my hands tighter, eyes reflecting a formidable light. You faced him before, remember that strength. You're more powerful than you think, but her reassurance couldn't sweep away the wave of guilt crashing in. What if he comes back? What if he tells everyone about the mess I've been trying to hide? My panic surged again. Then we face it together, she said firmly, unwavering. Whatever happens next, you don't have to do it alone. I promise. Her words washed over me, but doubt still licked at the edges of my heart. Just as I contemplated her warmth, a commotion erupted outside. I stood up, heart racing, as shadows flickered across the cafe's windows, sirens blared in the distance, crescendoing into a chaotic symphony. Cleo and I exchanged worried glances, sensing the storm outside had transformed into something much more menacing. The rain continued to fall, but it was the gathering storm in our lives that had me truly trembling. Without warning, the cafe door burst open again, but this time, it wasn't Kyle Allen. It was a pair of uniformed officers, their expressions grim, scanning the room with an air of authority that sent icy fingers creeping down my spine. Ava Reynolds? One of them called out, voice booming even over the chatter that had built in the cafe. Panic surged through me. Me? I breathed, as reality began to darken around the edges. The officers stepped closer, their gaze unyielding, and it struck me in that instant that my past, however messy, was clawing its way back to me, and there would be no escaping this newfound whirlwind. The chill in the cafe intensified as I stood frozen before the officers, my mother's words echoing in my ears. Always stay out of trouble, Ava. Little did she know that trouble had a way of camping out in the corners of my life, quietly waiting for its moment to strike. Ava Reynolds? The lead officer, tall and imposing with a furrowed brow, stepped forward, the murmurs of the patrons sliding to silence behind me. I felt like the only person in the room standing in the spotlight of an unforgiving stage. Yes? I managed, my voice barely above a whisper, my heart thudding like a wild drum. I am Officer Daniels, this is Officer Parks. We need to ask you a few questions regarding a matter linked to a recent incident. His words were clipped, sharp enough to cut through my mounting anxiety. Cleo's grip on my arm tightened, her quiet support a tether against my rising panic. "What incident?" I ventured, my voice trembling as I tried to gather the scattered pieces of my composure. "We have reason to believe you may have been involved in an altercation that took place a few nights ago near the old bank on Willow Street. Can you tell us where you were around that time?" Officer Daniels pressed, his blue eyes piercing through the haze of my confusion. The recollections came flooding back, images of that night swirling in my mind. I had been avoiding that part of myself, but reality wasn't giving me the luxury of denial. I was there," I stammered, knowing that if I didn't own my mistakes, the weight of them would crush me entirely. "I went to meet someone, but I left before anything happened." The officers shared a brief glance, and I could feel the tension crackle in the air between us. "We have witnesses who saw you leave, but also another who claims you were more involved. We need to know what you saw." In that moment, time seemed to expand, each second stretching into oblivion before snapping back, forcing me to realize that I wasn't just a passive participant in this mess, I was entangled in it, and now I had to decide how to navigate this storm. "I didn't see anything. I swear," I protested, panic rising in my chest, but Officer Daniels remained unwavering, his cool demeanor containing an urgency that felt almost like a threat. "You don't understand, in trying to protect who, exactly?" he interrupted, raising an eyebrow. "Yourself or someone else." My heart raced, and suddenly, I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me from all sides. I was fighting to keep my life intact, but every decision I made seemed to send ripples into the turbulent waters of my reality. The door swung open again, and just when I thought things couldn't become any more complicated, a woman stepped inside, shaking water from her coat, her features partially obscured by the drizzling rain. The room held its breath as she approached the officers, pain etched in her eyes. "Please, two can help her," she said, her voice trembling yet resolute. "What do you mean?" Officer Parks asked, taken aback by her sudden appearance. "I saw everything that night," she continued, stepping closer, her gaze darting toward me with an intensity that pulled at my heartstrings. "I can vouch for Ava. She wasn't involved." I promised. A mix of emotions surged through Mirleaf, confusion, gratitude. Who was this stranger, and why was she willing to step into the fray on my behalf? "Do you know her?" Officer Daniels' tone was skeptical, his gaze flitting between us, searching for inconsistencies. "I didn't know her then, but I know now," the woman insisted, unwavering. "What happened was terrible, but Ava had nothing to do with it. I swear on my life." My heart raced as I watched the stranger stand firm, the flicker of hope nudging against the walls I had built around my vulnerability. A moment stretched out, filled with the weight of uncertainty. Suddenly, the sirens resounded louder in the distance, a soundtrack of chaos swirling through the air, heralding a new wave of urgency that ripped through the cafe. The officers looked at each other, deliberating. As they weighed the new information, a prayer curled silently on my lips. I didn't know this woman, yet her unexpected kindness felt like a lifeline being tossed amidst turbulent seas. Then it hit me: was my world about to shift because of someone I didn't know? The question banged against my mind, refusing to settle. Could this moment of grace stand in defiance against my crumbling reality? "All right," Officer Daniels said hesitantly, his pen poised over his notepad. "Well, need your statement." "But if you're wrong, I'm not," the woman replied boldly, a fire igniting in her eyes. "You'll see." And just like that, an opening had emerged, but my relief was tempered by the understanding that I remained at the center of an unresolved storm. Cleo squeezed my hand tighter, anchoring me as uncertainty washed over us, but my heart sank as Officer Daniels turned to me, the intensity of the moment shifting once again. "Ava, this isn't over. We'll need to delve deeper into your involvement, and if we uncover anything, it'll be deemed serious." As that ominous warning hung in the air, I felt the ground shift below me. I wasn't simply facing my past, I was standing on the cusp of a revelation that could alter everything I understood about myself. And as the rain continued to drum on the cafe roof, mixing with the thoughts racing through my mind, I knew this was only the beginning and that the real storm was yet to come. It felt like the world came to a standstill, suspended in that grim cafe where all eyes had turned to the woman who had stepped into my life like an angel. She was a stranger, yet she radiated a familiarity that soothed the panic rising in my chest. I watched her, hope blooming like a flower in the cracks of concrete. Could she really change my fate? "Thank you," I whispered to her, barely loud enough to be heard over the murmuring uncertainty of the cafe. But her expression suggested she understood more than words could convey. I could see the fierce determination in her eyes, a stark contrast to my own swirling emotions of fear and confusion. Officer Parks took a tentative step forward. "Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions about what you witnessed," he said, his voice steady but tinged with wariness. The woman nodded, courageously meeting the gaze of both officers. I couldn't help but admire her. This was no ordinary act of kindness. She was standing up for me, confronting the weight of authority just to save a girl she didn't even know. As Officer Parks began with his inquiries, I slipped into a chair, grateful for the support of Cleo beside me. Her eyes spoke volumes, silently encouraging me to hold on, to trust that something better could unfold. I held onto her hand tightly, drawing strength from her presence. The cafe buzzed around us, the faint smell of burnt coffee mixing with the tension in the air. My eyes darted over to the windows, raindrops racing each other down the glass, mirroring my tumultuous thoughts. What if the woman made a mistake? What if her fight for me only dragged her into a pit of trouble? I clenched my jaw, desperate to shake the negativity creeping into my mind. "I saw someone else near the bank that night," the woman began, her gaze unwavering as she looked toward Officer Parks. "But Ava wasn't part of it. She was just there, and then she left. I swear it." There it was, the truth hanging in the air between us, encased in a fragile moment. I wanted to believe her, to cling to that shred of a possibility that someone could really care enough to come forward. But as hope flickered, so did my anxiety. What if someone decided to retaliate against her for speaking up? The officers continued their questioning, and I tuned out, focusing instead on the swell of emotions within me. Fear began to mix with an unexpected surge of gratitude as I studied the face of this mystery woman, a stranger to most but a beacon of light in my darkness. What could possibly have driven her to take such a risk? Just as my mind began to wander, the cafe door swung open again, slamming against the wall. A figure stepped inside, soaked from the rain, panic written all over his face. It was Adam, my brother. "What's happening?" His voice sliced through the murmur, his eyes darting around the room until they landed on me. The worry etched on his face deepened as he locked eyes with the officers. "Ava," the body language changed in an instant, the officers stiffened, and Officer Daniels turned his full attention to Adam. "Sir, this is an ongoing investigation. You'll need to step back. No. Adam shouted. "I want to know what's happening with my sister." Panic flared anew, and I felt a swell of protectiveness for him wash over me. "Adam!" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's okay." "I'm okay," but fear clutched at me as the officers attempted to calm him down, creating a wall of authority that only heightened tensions. I could see Adam was about to protest further, about to bulldoze through whatever barriers they had set up for him, and a fresh wave of panic crashed over me. I had to protect him, should not be dragged into this mess because of me. "Adam, please," I pleaded, the urgency in my voice breaking through the noise of the tempest swirling around us. Officer Parks interjected, stepping closer to Adam. "Sir, I assure you we are handling this situation. Your sister is not in immediate danger, but we need to conduct our investigations without interference. No one's going to protect her like I will." Adam shouted defiantly, taking a step forward but halted by the firm grip of Officer Daniels, torn between wanting to comfort Adam and understanding that this chaos was a reflection of my own mistakes. I felt the walls closing in on me. The anxious weight of my own choices came crashing back down, stifling the small flickers of hope ignited by the stranger's intervention. I looked at the woman, desperate for reassurance, but she held her ground, as solid as an oak tree weathering the storm. "Don't worry," she mouthed silently to me, her gaze strong. But as Adam continued to clash with the officers, I realized that whatever was brewing in the shadows was now threatening everything around me. And just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, sharp against the anxiety weighing upon me. I pulled it out, my heart pounding as I saw an unknown number flashing across the screen. I hesitated before answering, knowing that in this moment of turmoil, it could change everything. Once again the hope I found, the danger looming, the fragile thread that tied my fate to this moment. With shaking hands, I brought the phone to my ear. "Hello, Ava?" A voice shot through, low and urgent. "You need to listen to me closely. They're coming for you. You're in danger." My heart dropped, and the world around me blurred into obscurity. I was no longer just a girl caught in a storm. I had stepped into a shadowy realm filled with threats I couldn't comprehend. The floodgates had opened, unleashing chaos into my life, and the only question left was how deep the waters would rise before I had a chance to swim back to safety. The tension in the cafe was palpable as the voice on the other end of the line continued to echo ominously in my ears. "They're coming for you." My heart raced, and my breath caught in my throat. I looked around the room, the sounds of Adam's protest blending into a muffled chaos as if I were submerged underwater. Fear curled in my stomach, squeezing until I could barely breathe. Who is coming for me?" I managed to choke out, my voice trembling. "The people you got wrapped up with, Ava. You need to get away now." I gripped the phone tightly, the outline of my life spinning wildly out of control. My gaze drifted to Adam, wild and frantic, caught in his struggle against the officers, and I was consumed by a rush of love mixed with guilt. I had pulled him into this, my choices leading to the storm that was now threatening to drown us both. "Listen to me carefully," the voice continued, urgency crackling like electricity. "Trust no one. They'll use anyone to get to you. You need to get out of there before they find you. Who are you?" My voice cracked, desperately seeking to anchor myself in the storm of uncertainty. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I'm trying to help you," the voice snapped, a hint of frustration bleeding through. "You have no idea what they're capable of. I don't have much time to explain. You need to leave that cafe, find a place to hide. There's a car waiting for you 2 blocks away." The mention of you two shifted my focus back to Adam and the woman who had bravely stepped into my life. I felt a flicker of uncertainty. "I can't just leave him," I whispered, fear and loyalty battling each other within my heart. "Your brother is in danger too. You need to make a choice, Ava. You can't save everyone, not now." The weight of those words pressed heavily on my chest. I closed my eyes, the echoes of confusion battling with my instincts. I heard Cleo's silent encouragement beside me, felt the warmth of the woman's unwavering gaze, but the noise of the cafe swirled with the threats that felt all too real. "I just need a minute," I breathed, cutting off the conversation. "I can't leave him." I glanced back at Adam, frustration etched into the creases of his brow as he struggled against the officers. In that moment, a flicker of resolve ignited within me. I remembered the woman, the courage she had shown when confronting the officers. "Maybe together, we could figure this out, Adam," I yelled, attempting to cut through the chaos. "Listen to me, please. We need to get out of here." He turned sharply, eyes wide, the anger momentarily replaced by a spark of confusion. But before he could grasp my intention, Officer Parks raised his voice. "Miss, I must insist you and your brother remain calm. This is not the way." But the urgency was unbearable. I felt a fire stealing through my veins as I turned to Cleo, pleading for her support. "We have to go now. Go?" she echoed, confusion and fear flaring in her eyes. "Ava, what are you talking about? There isn't time. We're in danger. We can't stay here." Suddenly, the woman, the stranger who had offered me hope, stepped forward, her voice low but commanding. "Listen to her. There's more at stake here than you realize." For a brief moment, time slowed, the frantic urgency spiraling around us. I saw the potential for something great, a united front against the forces that threatened to engulf us all. Okay, Adam uttered, finally understanding. He glanced at the officers, then at me, the defeat settling into courage. "We have to go." "Then, follow me," the woman said, and with that, she turned towards the exit, every ounce of her being radiating an unspoken promise of safety. My heart raced as I shot a glance back at Cleo, who seemed trapped in indecision. "You coming?" I asked urgently. Cleo hesitated only a moment before gripping my arm. "Let's do this," and just like that, we moved, the cafe transforming into a labyrinth of uncertainty. We slipped past the officers, their heads turning in confusion, and darted out into the cold, rain-drenched street. The chill in the air bit at my skin, but I felt alive with purpose. "What do we do now?" Adam asked, his breath visible in the frigid air. "Stick together," the woman replied, glancing around as if the shadows were alive, listening. "The car's just a few blocks down. We have to move fast." As we ran, torrents of rain fell around us, blurring the world into a watercolor of fear and determination. My heart thudded in my chest, the chaos around me a mirror of the storm brewing within. The dread of what awaited us kept my mind racing, but there was also a flicker of hope ignited by this unexpected alliance, one that stemmed from the bravery of a woman who had chosen to intervene. But as we rounded the corner and I caught sight of the car the voice had mentioned, my heart dropped again. Two shadowy figures leaned against the vehicle, faces obscured, the streetlight illuminating just enough for my gut to churn. I froze. "What's wrong?" Adam asked, growing anxious. The woman stepped forward, her body tense, scanning the figures like a lion surveying its prey. "Stay close," she commanded, and just as fear wrapped its clawed hand around my throat, the figures stepped forward, revealing menacing smiles that twisted with malevolence. The tension peaked me, heart pounding in rhythm with each step they took towards us, the shadows closing in, threatening to swallow what little hope we had left. In that moment, as the distance shrank between us and the shadows loomed larger than life, I realized with a crushing certainty that danger wasn't merely chasing us, it was here, breathing down our necks, demanding our fears be fed. And beneath the cacophony of running feet and heartbeats, an underlying truth coursed through me sometimes. Hope and despair share the same breath. The chill of the night seeped deeper into my bones as we stood frozen, locked in a tense standoff with the figures in the shadows. The rain had turned into a steady downpour, each droplet slicing through the air like a blade, mirroring the urgency of the moment. My heart thudded violently, torn between the instinct to flee and the urge to fight alongside the woman who had so bravely stepped into our lives. "Get back!" she shouted suddenly, thrusting her arms in front of us with fierce protectiveness. The glow of the streetlight reflected off her determined face, and in that instant, I felt a bond form, a shared understanding that transcended our circumstances. "Who are you?" one of the shadowy figures called out, his voice dripping with an unsettling melodrama that sent shivers down my spine. "You're in over your heads, sweetheart. We don't want to play games." I felt Adam shift beside me, nerves rippling through him like electric current. "We don't want anything to do with you," he shot back, a note of defiance creeping into his voice, even though I could hear the underlying tremor of fear. "Then you should have stayed put, little man." The figure took a step forward, the dim light finally revealing a glint of metal in his hands. My breath caught as I realized it was a knife, barely catching the light, but ominously present. A cold chill shouldered through me, scrambling my mind. How had we gotten here so quickly, ensnared in a web that felt both surreal and terrifyingly real? The woman took a step back but kept her gaze locked onto our adversaries. "We just want to leave," she declared, voice steady. "We're not looking for trouble. But trouble seems to have found you," another figure chimed in, a smirk dancing across his face. "You're wrapped up in something far too big for you to comprehend. Don't you wonder what happens next? My life isn't a game for you to play with," I shot back, voice wavering but determined. "We're leaving." Now the gang members exchanged glances, seemingly unfazed by my protests. The tension around us thickened like fog, and a chilling realization took root. We were outnumbered, unprepared, and time was running thin. Suddenly, a car horn blared in the distance, slicing through the oppressive night air. I glanced at the woman beside me, and she nodded, her eyes resolute. "Now, Adam." Before I could process her words, she lunged forward, tackling one of the men with an unexpected ferocity. It took me a second to register what was happening, but instinct kicked in, and I sprang into action alongside her. "Go!" she shouted to us, sending Adam darting towards the car, and I followed, heart racing. The chaos exploded behind me, shouts and the shattering of rain-filled streetlight breaking the night. I could feel the adrenaline stirring my limbs, a wild surge of survival instinct. We were almost there, just a few more steps. I didn't dare look back. I could hear the scuffle, and my mind raced with questions. Was she okay? Would they come after us? We reached the car, and Adam, trembling, fumbled with the back door while I darted around, eyes scanning our surroundings. The moment I slipped inside, the stranger followed, drawing her body tight to the door, eyes darting in every direction. "Drive!" she yelled at the driver, a tall man, his face shadowed but recognizable from the cafe. It was the voice I had heard on the phone, the one that had warned us. The engine roared to life, but the awkward silence that followed filled me with dread. The moment we escaped through the alley, I turned to the woman, who was still catching her breath. "What the hell just happened?" "They know about you, Ava," she said, her voice strained yet unwavering. "You got mixed up in something dangerous, something they weren't supposed to find out." "What do you mean?" My confusion twisted into frustration. "I don't understand." Before she could answer, the driver swerved around a corner, and I glanced behind us. The figures were gone, but I felt their presence lurking somewhere in the dark, like shadows hunting in the night. A sudden thought struck me, visceral and cruel. Did you know them? I asked the woman, suddenly grappling with the uncertainty of who had just saved us. How do you know all of this? Her silence spoke volumes. The air within the vehicle thickened, creating an awkward tension just as horrifying as the chase. Adam had clamped his arms tight around his knees, eyes wide, absorbing the chaos like a sponge. I know people, the woman finally replied, her voice softening. People who have been tracking you. You're not just in danger, you're part of a web of something bigger than yourself. I don't have the full picture, but I can tell you this, you need to trust me. I'm on your side, but trust felt like a fragile thing in the face of uncertainty. I stared at her, grappling with the tumult of fear and hope, desperately searching for signs of sincerity in her eyes. As the car sped into the night, I suddenly felt a shift within me, a flicker of determination. No longer just a victim of circumstance, I was a survivor, ready to unravel the mystery that had ensnared us. Then the unexpected happened. The phone I had dropped during the chaos buzzed violently, vibrating against the seat. Cautiously, I reached for it, the screen lighting up with an unknown number. My gut twisted, a new unease settling deep within my stomach. Do you want to answer it? The woman's voice was barely a whisper, an unspoken question balanced with fear. My fingers hovered over the screen, the choice of whether to reveal our location to whoever was on the other end intensifying the stakes yet again. With the decisions coming to a head that would change everything, I took a deep breath, heart racing against the weight of the situation, and pressed the button. Hello? I said, the word barely escaping my lips, mingled with trepidation and the dawning realization that the journey ahead would only get murkier from here on out. Hello? The word escaped my lips, a hesitant whisper that echoed the tension in the car. There was a moment of silence on the other end, an unbearable weight that seemed to stretch the boundaries of time. Ava, a familiar voice finally responded, cutting through the darkness like a knife. You have to listen carefully. It was Noah, my older brother, a whirlwind of confusion and protective instinct. My heartbeat surged, memories of his face flooding my mind, always a steadfast presence in my life, but now the reality was intermingled with chaos. Are you okay? Where are you? His voice was strained, drenched in concern. I stumbled over my words, glancing around. The woman and Adam exchanged anxious looks, uncertainty crackling in the air. I'm with someone. I don't know if it's safe to talk. They were after us. Get away from them. His voice was urgent, layered with an unfathomable tension that made my stomach drop. Ava, trust me. Just a jarring thud shook the car, interrupting our conversation, sending jolts of panic surging through me. The driver swerved suddenly. We're being followed. He shouted, gripping the wheel with white knuckles. Who? I yelled, looking out of the back window. The dark silhouettes of figures materialized into view, distorted shapes amidst the blaring headlights behind us, the harsh glow revealing the ominous intentions behind their pursuit. Don't know, warned again, but his voice was cut off by static, the connection wavering as the signal battled against our mounting fear. Hold on. The driver shouted, his voice resolute as he twisted the wheel, veering into an alley that spiraled into darkness. As we entered a narrow street, shadows danced around us, a cloak of mystery shrouded in adrenaline and dread. Release it! The woman barked, suddenly coming to life, her focus sharpening. We need to get to the warehouse. It's our only chance. The warehouse? I shot back, grappling with confusion and fear. What are you talking about? Whose side are you on? I'm on your side. She insisted, but urgency dripped from her voice. You'll understand once we get there. Trust me. Another crash echoed through the night as our pursuers barreled into the alley behind us. My heart thudded so violently against my ribs that it felt like it could burst at any moment. I glanced at Adam, his face pale and stricken, and then back to the woman, who was grappling with her own uncertainty. Noah's voice crackled back to life through the phone. Ava. Get to safety. It's not just them, it's more complicated than you think. You can't trust. With a sudden bump, our car jolted to a halt. The driver had turned sharply, screeching into a hidden alcove that melded with the brick walls, and I felt my pulse racing with every moment that passed. Get out! The woman commanded, her urgency palpable as she scrambled towards the door. The others moved quickly, adrenaline driving us forward, but confusion clotted my mind, wrapping around me like a shroud. Wait! I yelled, caught in the turmoil between following blindly and protecting myself. Noah's voice clamored in my head, a fierce reminder of the loyalty tethered to my past. Noah, I can't leave you, Ava. Listen to me. His voice surged through the static once more, fierce and unwavering, grounding me. You need to trust your instincts. Whatever you're entangled in, it's bigger than you realize. Just stay safe. With a deep breath, I hung up, the weight of his absence pressing down on me like an anchor. As we spilled into the alley, the rain pounded relentlessly around us, a frantic rhythm that drove home the reality of our situation. The woman whipped around, her eyes fierce. This way. Keep low. We darted between high walls, heartbeats synchronized in an effort to escape the very shadows that felt like they were reaching for us. But the thought of Noah lingered, the bond we shared now tainted by the unknown. As we hit a corner, the woman halted, pulling us into a small courtyard. The warehouse is just ahead. They can't follow us here. For a tense moment, I took in my surroundings, the darkness closing in like a heavy shroud, while the rain pelted down a soothing but haunting rhythm that matched the chaos in my chest. I could only imagine what lay ahead, how deep the currents of danger ran. Who are they? Adam finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What do they want from us? There it was again, the echo of uncertainty weighing heavily upon us. The woman hesitated but sought to steady her voice. They're after something that you've unwittingly become part of, something that puts you in their crosshairs. I'll explain once we're safe. Suddenly, a flash of headlights illuminated the courtyard, and fear coursed through me like wildfire. The figure behind the wheel emerged, and I froze, my heart racing in survival mode. It was one of the men from earlier, a haunting familiarity sparking recognition. Run! The woman screamed, lunging toward me as we took off again, the shadows chasing us mercilessly. I felt the weight of the moment pressing in, believing we were steps away from salvation or plunging deeper into chaos. But as we burst through the warehouse doors, a shocking realization gripped me. A trap lay ahead, and we were walked right into their hands. Just as I was about to shout a warning, the heavy doors slammed shut behind us, a resounding echo marking the beginning of a new nightmare. In that moment, the air thickened with betrayal, and a voice echoed from the shadows inside, sending chills racing down my spine. You didn't think it would be that easy, did you? The dark figure stepped forward, and my heart sank as recognition struck like a lightning bolt. It was someone I'd long thought out of reach, a face from my past, now tangled in this unforgiving web. And I realized, dread pooling in my stomach, that my journey was about to twist in ways I could never have imagined. The room was cold, its darkness cutting through the adrenaline that still coursed through my veins. As I instinctively took a step back, the shadows deepened, swallowing the figure that emerged from the darkness. Jordan, my childhood friend, the one with whom I had shared countless secrets, laughter, and dreams. Jordan? I breathed, disbelief battling with apprehension. Memories flooded back, those endless summer days, our shared ambitions, our promises to always look out for one another. But the look in his eyes was foreign, an unsettling coldness that pierced through our shared history. What are you doing here? I stammered as my heart wrestled with confusion and terror. Noah didn't tell you? He replied, voice draped in irony, and for a brief second, I could see the boy I knew beneath the hardened exterior. He thought it was safer this way. Safer? I echoed, bewildered. As I glanced sideways, I noticed the woman standing guard at the warehouse entrance, her stance open yet ready. Adam's face remained blank, a canvas of fear and uncertainty, and I could feel his tension vibrating in the air between us. Jordan took a slow, deliberate step closer. You should have stayed away from this, Ava. You got dragged into something far bigger than any of us realized. Stop it. Just stop talking in riddles. I snapped, frustration pooling like venom in my throat. What's going on? A moment of silence enveloped us, the weight of unspoken truths heavy in the air. But before he could respond, a sharp sound echoed, snapping us back into reality. Keep it down. The woman hissed, urgency racing through her demeanor. They'll be here any second. We need to leave, now. Leave? I shook my head, my pulse racing in disbelief. We can't leave, not without understanding what's happening first. This isn't a game, Jordan interjected, his voice edged with urgency. You don't know who you're dealing with. I shouldn't even be here, but I had to protect you. Protect me? I scoffed, although deep down, his sentiment cracked a fragile window of trust. You've put me in danger by just being here, but before I could dwell on that, a distant sound reached us, a harsh cacophony of tires screeching and voices yelling outside. Panic washed over me again as realization dawned. We were trapped. What do we do? Follow me, Jordan said, turning resolutely as he led the way through the dark recesses of the warehouse, each footstep heavy with the gravity of my disbelief. The air was thick with tension, the scent of rust and dampness mingling with the adrenaline that made my mind spin. As we navigated through the labyrinth of crates and equipment, I caught brief glimpses of shadows flitting by. The knots in my stomach tightened with every sound, a reverberation of footsteps, voices getting closer, and whispered discussions about us. Noah thinks he can protect you, but he doesn't understand, Jordan continued, glancing back with concern, his voice barely above a whisper. He doesn't see how intertwined everything is. The danger accelerates with every moment you're here. My heart ached at the mention of Noah, a painful reminder of both his absence and my longing for his unwavering support. What do you mean intertwined? But before Jordan could respond, the woman suddenly raised her arm, signaling us to stop. We can't go this way. We have to backtrack. A loud crash of wood splintering filled the air, prompting us to whirl around. The warehouse doors flew open, and silhouettes of several armed figures stood framed in the light pouring in from the outside. My heart raced, panic exploding as the reality of our situation sunk deeper. No. I gasped, lungs tightening as fear threatened to engulf me entirely. I felt Jordan's hand grasp mine tightly, grounding me even as chaos threatened to unfold. We have to split up, he said urgently, eyeing the exits. Ava, go with her. Adam, come with me. Well, create a distraction in whatever you do, don't stop running. No. We can't split up. My voice tremored, desperation clawing at my resolve. You can't trust me. Jordan shouted, his eyes fierce with determination. You have to trust me, before I could overthink it. Adam nodded slightly, his expression mirroring my dread but filled with determination. Let's go, he urged, a sudden surge of courage igniting his voice. With no other choice left, I turned to the woman, who looked steely-eyed, ready to move. Just as we began to make our way toward the back door, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss at the thought of being separated from the only people I could trust in a world turned upside down. Remember, Ava, Jordan called back, you're stronger than you think. It was a simple sentiment, but in the midst of turmoil, it felt like a lifeline. With a nod, I turned away, my heart heavy as I fled into the abyss of uncertainty, the echoes of my past mingling with the chaos of my present, propelling me forward into uncharted territory. As we darted toward the back, the world started to blur behind me, confusion mingling with the roar of adrenaline. And just when I thought we might slip through, when hope flickered dimly in my heart, a loud explosion rocked the building, the force pinning me against the wall. My breath hitched, and all I could think was that perhaps our fate had already been sealed before we even began to run. A thunderous feeling washed over me, the overlapping layers of fear and determination swirling like a tempest. And in that moment of utter chaos, I realized this fight was just beginning, and the threads of my life and choices were tangled in ways I could no longer grasp. Everything exploded around us, the cacophony of the blast drowning out all coherence. For a moment, the world shifted, an overwhelming rush of sensations melding into a single heartbeat. I felt the heat from the flames licking up nearby walls, merging the smell of burning wood and fear into an unshakable reality. My heart raced as if it, too, fought against the blaze of uncertainty that surged into every crack of my being. Ava! The woman yelled, snapping me back to the chaos hovering at the edge of my awareness. She pulled me close, her hold tight yet reassuring. We need to go. The remnants of the warehouse proved treacherous, debris falling like rain around us as we expertly maneuvered through the haze. Adrenaline surged and propelled us forward. I didn't dare look back, focusing all my willpower on escaping the prison we had stumbled into. But the truth clotted my Mindy had to find Jordan and Adam. Abandoning them felt impossible despite the amplifying weight of danger, even as we inched toward what I hoped was safety. Take this, the woman said, shoving a small device into my hand as we came to an intersection in the back. My heart raced with confusion. It's a tracker. If we get separated, you'll need it to find me. Her gaze locked onto mine, fierce but tinged with urgency. Keep it close. You can find us. You can find your brother? Before I could finish, the tension shattered as figures filled the entrance we had skirted past. Shadows from the past clawed at the door, welcoming destruction as they closed in. I felt like a toy caught in a storm, bobbing on turbulent waters. I had already lost so much. "Run!" she urged, and instinct took over as I dashed through an adjacent door and into the alleyway. Rain pelted down, drenching me instantly as I whipped around a corner, heart hammering against my chest. Each cacophonous step hammered my resolve. Where were the others? Had they made it out? Please, let them be safe. The questions gnawed me, a reminder that choices tether us to destinies we don't always choose, and guilt seeped into the fabric of my thoughts like a stain. I found myself hopping over a low fence, adrenaline coursing through me like a lifeline. Forward. I had to keep moving, to outpace the shadows chasing me from my past. Each sprout of hope urging me along ignited fierce determination. My breath came in ragged gasps as I skirted through the back alleys, clutching the tracker tightly in my palm, willing it to guide me back to them. And then where was I? I skidded to a halt in a narrow space, completely obscured by walls cloaked in darkness. I felt lost, unsure of where to go, and fear choked my throat. Just when doubt began to cloud my thoughts, I heard voices ricocheting through the air. Familiar voices. "Jordan." "Adam." I called out, straining to hear over the chaos that had erupted outside. "I'm here." "Ava." The relief surged in my chest at the sound of their names, a bomb shelter amidst the storm of my uncertainty. I rushed toward the voices, each thud of my heart an echo of determination. In coming, I found them huddled behind an old dumpster, darting glances around as if the world could devour us whole before we emerged. Relief washed over both their faces as their eyes locked onto mine, but just as quickly, a shadow cast itself upon their features. "We have to hurry," Jordan pleaded, urgency penetrating the air. They were close behind us. "Where's the woman?" Adam's gaze darted, panic creeping in. "Is she okay?" She gave me this." My hand trembled, revealing the device, but uncertainty coursed through every vein in my body. Having formed a bond stronger than blood, I felt her absence acutely. My heart ached not just from the risk woven through this encounter but from wanting to protect the threads of trust that had built with every shared moment. "I think she might be following. We need to find the nearest exit before they close in on us." "Follow me," Jordan urged, motioning forward. "There's an old loading dock that should lead out to the street." Without hesitation, we moved quickly through the dim alleyways, shadows enveloping us like a second skin. I felt a plan ignite in my mind, taking baby steps back into the world I had tried to escape, carefully shifting down this unfamiliar path. But then the air shifted, a cold whisper wrapped around me. Something didn't feel right. My instincts flared, an ethereal alarm blaring deep within my gut. "Wait." The moment hung between us, charged with anticipation, and just as Jordan turned to ask why, we caught sight of a figure lingering in the darkness. My breaths quickened, realization crashing over me like icy water. "No," I gasped. The figure stepped into the pale light, a grim smile spreading across his face as recognition lit my eyes. "Ava," Kyle said, his voice oozing with false charm. "I'm glad I found you." "No! You can't be here!" I shouted, gripping the tracker harder, my heart pounding as fear clawed at every word. "You need to leave." Kyle's expression shifted, becoming colder as he took a step closer. "This isn't just about you anymore, sweetheart. You've put us all at risk." Before I could react, another figure emerged from the shadows behind him. The hard lines of authority wrapped around Officer Daniels as he stepped forward, the tension palpable in the air. "You don't understand, Ava. You're wrapped up in something serious. It's time to cooperate." A flurry of emotions surged through me: anger, fear, defiance, but realization collided within me, blending into a single, powerful resolve. "You think he'll let you dictate my choices? I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," Kyle said darkly, "because it's not just your life at stake here." "What do you mean?" Suddenly, the ground shook beneath us, and the sudden eruption of cacophonous shouts filled the air, chaos flailing around us once again. Sirens blared, the light of flashing rotors cut the night like knives. My heart pounded in response, the shadows of uncertainty creeping into every space left exposed. "Now!" Jordan yelled, grabbing my arm and pulling me back toward the still dark alleyways. "We break free from this mess," and just as we sprinted away, Kyle's voice echoed behind me like a specter, "This isn't over, Ava." Not by a long shot, fear and determination guided me as we ran, the moon rising overhead, illuminating the paths of our past while drawing me closer to the light of reclamation. In that moment, I grasped the truth: I was a warrior for my own life, unearthing the depths of my own strength amidst the chaos. And through it all, a flicker of hope burned fiercely, the resolve of a million unspoken words kindling a force I never knew I carried, because I was ready to reclaim what had been lost, ready to confront both my past and the shadows that threatened my future. This time, I would emerge into the light. For in this storm of shadows, I would find my way home.